So that big piece of material you see there is fireproof sheet. I just put it there to make sure that we weren't running the risk of melting on the pipe because we were really tight to the pipe and we didn't want to mark it up. So put some in and carried on running that line. So this one will push all the way over to the indirect and throw the pump in between. So we've got the Caleffi unit on the bottom, the pump on the top, and now we're filling the system. So that is the Caleffi Hydrofill. It no longer exists, but we still sell the replacement bags for it. So for customers who bought it previous, we can still get them the bags. The Hydrofill is then run into the bottom, in this case, of the separator because that was the lowest point. It took a little while to figure out why the heck it wasn't filling, and it was because I had closed the valve on the separator. So some swearing and then going, oh yeah, open that up and everything filled right away. System's filling. We've got our Caleffi air vent at the top, bleeding out the air as the system fills up, and it's got a little hydroscopic cap in it. So should there ever be moisture get past the closure mechanism at the top, which is on a floating pin, it will actually seal the cap anyway, so it won't push water all over your basement, which would be not super entertaining. Although in my basement, there's actually a water sensor on the floor there from Symmons Evolution, so that sensor would tell me if there was a leak. Luckily, it never has, other than when I intentionally tested it. So again, we're doing a bunch of testing. We do some back and forth here. We're trying to make the pumps work because the boiler can run all these pumps. So it can run its own internal circulator, the boiler pump, and then 2 secondary circuit pumps separately. So we have all the provisions on board to do that. The problem is the folks who wired this house originally did some really weird wire for the pump you see in the far top right, which actually goes to a bench in my upstairs, which is a whole other crazy story. That wiring made it so the circulator would never shut off. So that was the case on my old boiler. I figured this out in like a fever dream at 2 in the morning. I'm like, it's this wiring. And so I actually come back and tear all the wiring out and redo the wiring, which I don't know if there's a shot with the new wiring later, but now the boiler controls everything. So all the zones, all the pumps, everything feed into the boiler, and it trips and runs everything all by its lonesome. It doesn't require a zone controller in this specific layout, other than the ones that are running the zone valves themselves. They're at the end switch of those is controlled by the boiler. So we're doing the basic setup here. So literally there's a 60-second, there's a little magic wand. So as you're clicking through those menus, and they blow by fast when you're on time lapse, but those menus, literally we tell it, I want to run off the outdoor sensor and thermostats, and it sets the boiler up based on that. So super simple. I showed really quick there was the shot of the Crowcon single head gas monitor. That's because we had just primed the system and bled propane so that it would run. So we were actively monitoring propane levels in the basement while we were working to make sure everything was safe. Luckily, everything was a-okay, had no issues at all. Did get to test this. The unit did go off very briefly when we did the prime, but we had all the windows open and fans going to draw that out. So it shut down with, I don't know, 5 seconds, but it was good to know that it works. And should there have been a leak later, it's literally still sitting next to the boiler downstairs right now to make me feel good about all these gas connections long term. So that Crowcon's far more accurate than the carbon monoxide meter that's on the wall about 5 feet to the right of the indirect tank.